Back in the early 90s, I had both Bill and Ted on videotape. Particularly Bogus Journey was one that I revisited a lot. But it's been a number of years since I went back to these movies. I was kind of curious about the third part that was going to come out, Bill and Ted Face the Music, and it was something that I was worried that they were going to kind of soil the memory of these movies. It's coming 29 years after the last instalment of Bill and Ted's, and I feel like I had to go back and kind of get to know these characters again. So very recently I went back and watched Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, and it's just charming. The understandable why these characters were so easy to connect to when you're watching the movie. You know, you have these two lovable idiots who seem to be endlessly positive. You know, it's rare to get characters that are so upbeat pretty much all of the time. You get this crazy time travel influence within the movie. You know, George Carlin turns up at one point telling them that they are the future of man. They're going to create music that will bring the whole world together. And these guys just kind of take it easy, because all they have to do, the most important thing for them just now, is to make sure that they do not fail in their history exam. Which seems like such a sort of minuscule plot, which does have like a grander meaning to it. They're going to save the world, but first they need to do their homework. And you get into these characters of Bill and Ted, played by Alex Winter and Keanu Reeves, and they just fit these roles perfectly. And one of the best moments of casting I think I've seen in movies. They just epitomise these characters immediately, from the way that they carry their body language, from their expressions, the way we deal with everything. It's incredibly fun. And then you get the time travel element of it. You get to take these two characters and put them in situations where they stand out even more than they already do, as they travel through history, collecting people to help them with their oral homework. And it's fun to see these characters visit these historical places. It's fun to see these historical characters experiencing the late 80s as they are brought back to modern Earth. But it has a great deal of charm. It has laughter and jokes with it as well by the bucketful. It has punch the air moments as Abraham Lincoln finishes off that speech in the auditorium. And it's just one of those movies that you can understand why it's so beloved, because it gives you everything you possibly need. It's not a huge story. Like I said, it's just homework. You get these two characters who are extremely lovable and perfectly performed. Even the future segments are kind of fun. And revisiting Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, I was won over again. I was instantly with these two characters. I wanted to see more of their journeys. I loved them, and I was eager to move on to part two. Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey was a movie that I watched a hell of a lot when I was younger. I remember preferring it to the original movie. I don't know why that was exactly, but I remember going to the cinema to see it. I remember buying it on video. I remember rewatching the hell out of it. But I had forgotten a lot about this movie. I remembered the main part because this movie is really, really wacky. You know, it takes the kind of craziness that you had in the first one and exponentially multiplies it by throwing in Bill and Ted going to heaven and hell, by them being killed, by them fighting robots with other robots, meeting aliens, just being all over the place, crazy. And it really is like a twisted nightmare, and it kind of steals the kind of almost reality that Excellent Adventure had by putting them into this surreal adventure where there's lots of tight angles and nightmarish worlds that they visit in this one, along with the evil Bill and Ted that we see in this one as well. But it still has that charm, it still has that fun moments, and it has an addition of a great new character. We get to meet Death in this one, played by William Sadler, who is just perfect for the role. And to see these three people in the mix, having these conversations that bounce off each other is wonderful. And it feels like something that was a real risk. You have Bill, you have Ted, you have their interplay and it works. You throw in this third wheel almost and you think it's going to derail the movies. But it actually makes them a little bit stronger. It gives them that kind of outside voice in amongst this trio that really adds to the film. Of course, lots of plot in this one as well, lots of strange imagery and things that just feel almost misplaced. I mean, it takes some futuristic elements, some science fiction elements within these robots. It has some Ingmar Bergman references with death in it. It has the esoteric conversation with God and visiting hell. It has so much thrown into it that it's a really weird and oddball movie. One that is really hard to imagine them coming together and deciding this was the direction to take Bill and Ted. But it's such a unique idea that really builds upon the first one. They don't relive the same movie over and over again, which generally happened at this time. It was just, new dressings on the same old story for sequels. This adds so much more, and whether it works or not is up to the individual viewer, because I could see it being off-putting, especially now where I don't think it has dated as well as I remember it to be. It's still impactful and it's still a unique idea for a story. I kind of appreciate the fact that they went that way with it. And then that brings us on to Bill and Ted Face the Music, the latest adventure from Bill and Ted. And it's a sequel that I really enjoyed. I was surprised how much I liked it. In fact, I'd go as far as to say I liked it more than the second part, watching these through. And we get a middle-aged Bill and Ted. These guys who were told they were going to be great, that never achieved that greatness. And that kind of puts a kind of poignancy. And that puts a little bit of poignancy to their tale. They've lived their life expecting something to happen, but it's never quite achieved there. But they've got so much, but they just don't realise it. They both have kids now, as we've seen at the end of the first movie. 2 daughters, who surprisingly are named Billy and Teddy, which is kind of weird, but they're fun characters and they are more into music than the original Bill and Ted. There is strange things happening within the universe. They again get a visit from the future telling them that they have to play a song at a certain time in 77 minutes, and if they don't, the world and reality as they know it will implode. So they have to go on a time travelling adventure in the old phone box to try and figure out what this song is, basically trying to steal it from themselves. And what we have here is a really fun segment where we have Bill and Ted travelling several years in the future, meeting other versions of themselves to see how they turned out to try and get the song, to save themselves from writing it, because they're taking shortcuts. And it's these things that are really funny. These variations on these Bill and Ted characters were hilarious, whether it be slightly overweight, the balding ones, the muscle-bound versions in prison. It was all incredibly just funny. Whereas we have a B story here. We have the daughters of Bill and Ted travelling back in time to try and gather together some of the world's greatest musicians, so to help them play the music that's going to unite the world together. It has so many callbacks to the original, and they're not done in a kind of acknowledgement way, but they're built into the story and they feel natural to it and very fun. And it was really great to see these characters lost. Their future didn't turn out the way they were supposed to be, and to see them kind of struggling to deal with that was immensely fun. You get the addition of the younger, almost female versions of them, which from the trailer looked rather grating to me, but I really do kind of like them throughout the movie. You get acknowledgement to all kind of things, even station and robots, and you get a little bit of George Carlin in there as well as Rufus, which was really nice to see. And it just rounds off this trilogy fantastically well. It does feel a little bit pandering by carrying in all these things, but it's done in such a loving fashion. It has the laughs has that excitement of seeing where these characters are going. And I really liked going back to this character 29 years later. It felt fitting to see where they ended up, because the way it ends in the Bogus Journey, you feel as if their future's all mapped out and going to be the way it was in the original movies, but add a nice twist to it. It may be an unnecessary sequel, but it's one that I really enjoyed, and it creates a most triumphant trilogy that I really do enjoy a lot. I'd love to know your thoughts on Bill and Ted. If you've seen the first, the second, the third, whatever you've seen, I'd love to know your thoughts on them, what you think of them. For me, I think they're all good movies. I think the first one's still my favourite. The introduction to these characters is still fantastic. I really do like jumping into the third one. I thought that was fantastic as well, and probably my second favourite. And Bogus Journey, which was originally my favourite, is probably third in this. But that's not to say that it's bad movies. They're all enjoyable. I'd kind of like to see another one. Maybe in another 10 years' time, go back and see Bill and Ted and their daughters and where they've all ended up. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time on Man v Film.